Okay, I think we can start. So, hello everyone. Welcome to the first monthly product update of Vue Storefront. This is the first ever event like this, and we want to have them once a month to give you a broad overview of what we are doing right now, what we are working on, and also ask you for feedback about the things that we are uncertain about. So. If you don't know, I hope all of you know, but if you don't know, we've raised $1.5 million of US dollars. We announced this 2 weeks ago, and we want to spend this money on expanding our community or building our open source product, and also on making something that's really tough, but I think we're gonna make it with your help as well. We want to transform our open source product also to a business. Of course, we will still remain open source. We just want to create a business on top of that will solve issues of the developers that are using Vue Storefront. And also, thank you so much for your support. It wouldn't happen without you. So, going straight to the point. The agenda for today is that we want to give you an update from different streams. So, Vue Storefront Next, Vue Storefront 1, and Shopware PWA. And at the end, we'll have a short Q&A session. So if you have any questions, please post them on the chat. You can do this during our sessions. We will just collect all the stuff and answer. And today we have 3 core team members. So there is me, there is Filip Jędrasik, who is leading Vue Storefront 1, and there's also Maciek Kusmos. I think you haven't got a chance to meet Maciek. So Maciek, say hi to everyone.
Hi, everyone.
Yes, and Maciek is tech lead of Shopware PWA. So I will start with an update for Vue Storefront Next. And obviously, probably your question would be, is it ready? And the answer is not so simple. So this is ready. We're already building shops on Vue Storefront Next. We even already have some of them live. But if you want to use this, expect some breaking changes in the next 2 releases. So even though it is production ready, we are still not certain about few APIs. We are aware that we could do some things a little bit simpler. And because of that, we are still shipping breaking changes. This is mostly an integration side. So if you're building an integration, you could expect these breaking changes. If you're building a shop, actually not that much. So it's safer to do this from the client's perspective. And now, what we are working on right now. So, first of all, we are focusing on documentation for Vue Storefront Next. You can find this under docs/next.vuestorefront.io, because we really believe that there's no good developer experience without a proper documentation. So we are focusing on that very heavily. And we are even have Natalia Tepulina from Vue.js core team, who is also co-author of Vue documentation in our team, supporting us to make sure that our documentation is really top-notch and all the explanations are simple and straightforward. Also, if you are browsing the documentation, you could also find a link to the roadmap in there. So we are trying to have it up to date. We are planning more or less 2, maybe 1.5 quarters ahead, because we are more or less market-driven and our roadmap is market-driven. But there are still things that we are certain about that we want to include in Vue Storefront Next. So you can find our roadmap in the documentation on the top right corner. Also, every time we release a new version, we are posting a migration guide for you. And you can also find a link for this in the documentation. Now, the thing that we're working on very heavily right now is called Vue Storefront middleware, and this is actually something that is coming in the next release. And before you will say, "Oh God, this is Vue Storefront API again," and you are stating that, well, there won't be Vue Storefront API in Vue Storefront Next. This is not an equivalent of Vue Storefront API. This is actually solving different problems. So we really believe that all these progressive web apps that we have right now, they are really not delivering the promise that Google was giving at the beginning and when they were introducing this technology. Because the whole point of progressive web apps was to make web faster and to make web more approachable. And the reality is that we are seeing websites that are shipping megabytes of JavaScript on the client-side bundle, and we don't think that's the right way. We think that the right way is to put everything that we can on the server side, so the client-side bundle is as small as possible, and only handle the UI on the client side. And this is exactly what we are doing with Vue Storefront Next, and this is exactly for what we need this middleware, to keep the code related to business logic in there. Also, it's giving a much better security. You have a flexibility of API gateway, so you can actually plug in different services into this middleware. Whole extensibility mechanism for Vue Storefront is on the server side right now, so it's not on the client side. And there's no Elasticsearch in there, so that's also the main difference. We only have the Node.js middleware layer, which is actually a Next.js server middleware. So it all runs through a single command. You don't need any additional infrastructure, any additional containers for that. It's all baked into the same application. You can think about this as like a simple API hub with additional capabilities of extendability mechanism. And like the real world application would probably look like this. So you have these different integrations, and each integration would have its API client, and this API client would be on middleware. So in real world, we'll have probably an API client for some search mechanism, an API client for some CMS, and an API client for some e-commerce. Maybe even more API clients, and on top of that, for the e-commerce, we'll probably have e-commerce specific extensions like taxes, loyalty platforms. All of this will be on the middleware. And then on the front end, we'll have this composables layer, which is always the same, no matter what we have here. And the UI is using composables. So we have this agnostic data layer on the front end that is talking to the middleware. And on the middleware, we have different services. And this is the final architecture of Vue Storefront Next. We think that we improved it already to the degree that we are happy with, and that will ensure that our users will also not make silly mistakes, and we're kind of like enforcing this all performance best practices with this. Also, we are building integrations with different CMS systems. So the first one, actually the first ones to announce are Content Stack and Storyblock, from which Storyblock will be the open source one, and you will be able to use it very, very soon. I think we even have Sam Snopko from Storybook here, because I see him on the chat. So hey, Sam. Yeah. So this is what we are focusing on right now. We really think that Vue Storefront Next is already polished to the degree that the business logic is polished. The team is still something that we have to focus on, but we are already working on expanding our ecosystem and building integrations. At the same time, we are building 5 e-commerce integrations. Actually, our partners are doing this, but you will learn the details when they're closer to being released. And the next release of Vue Storefront Next is actually 2.3 with Vue Storefront middleware, and it's estimated to land in the first half of February. And this is the final architecture, including middleware. And from there, you shouldn't expect so many breaking changes. I think from the user's perspective, you shouldn't expect any. Maybe like the very, very small ones, which are like upgradable within minutes or maybe 1 hour. But from the integrator's perspective, maybe slightly ones. So that would be it about Vue Storefront Next. I think we could now pass the voice to Filip Jędrasik, who is leading Vue Storefront 1.
Okay, hello everyone. I think Filip introduced me correctly. So I am Filip Jędrasik. I'm currently in charge of Vue Storefront 1. I'm also taking care of the whole ecosystem related to Vue Storefront 1. So I mean that Storefront Query Builder, Storefront API, Vue Storefront API, etc. Could you, Filip, show the next slide? Okay, thanks. At first, I would like to share my vision for Vue Storefront 1 with the community. I want to be focused on the three main things, which are stability, knowledge sharing, and speed. Since I remember, Vue Storefront was still growing in terms of extending the scope. As I'm leading this project right now, I do not want to add new features and extending the scope if it is not totally necessary. I would like rather to focus, as I said, on stability, sharing knowledge, and speed. By stability, obviously, I mean bug fixing, refactoring, and writing text for tests for existing code. I mean, at first unit tests. Then around the second quarter, I would like to focus more on Cypress end-to-end tests. About sharing knowledge. Docs are pretty good in comparison what we had, for example, like 1.5 years ago. And I want to even make it much better. I would like to update what is not actual and write new docs about essential things. I'm daily helping the community on the Slack, and I'm pretty conscious what's the most common issues for the community. Let's go to speed. In terms of speed, I worked a lot on upgrading speed and page speed results. I applied many upgrades in terms of that. They are available on develop branch of Vue Storefront core. I also made many changes in Vue Storefront default theme. I couldn't do that much in Capybara as I was kind of limited by version of Storefront UI, and I couldn't just like that update so many things without breaking changes. We will back to the subject of Capybara later, but in terms of optimization, you could, for your already existing shops using 1.12 version, you could, based on develop branch from core and theme to maintain better performance for your shops. That's a good source of the knowledge. Okay, let's talk about the roadmap. I hope that everyone are conscious that Vue Storefront 1 project is not that. It is not like that. We are creating Next and Vue Storefront, and we will leave Vue Storefront 1. Totally not. We will still maintain Vue Storefront 1, but as I said, we will focus more on providing much better quality in terms of stability, knowledge, and speed instead of extending the scope. In first quarter of 2020, I'm aiming to release 1.12.3 version of Vue Storefront 1. I wanted to do it in January. However, I see now that I will be able to do it earliest at February. We are going to release new patch to the Vue Storefront API with minor bug fixes. As I said, I want to write new docs. And first example of that will be at first article about configuring and preparing a custom URL structure in your app, describing what's the router manager and router stuff inside Vue Storefront 1 app. Then, as a superset of that, I will prepare the whole guide in our documentation, which will tell deeply what you can do and how you can do that. Another thing is that I also added support for min and max price aggregation for inside Storefront Query Builder, so you will be able to create, for example, a price slider using using proper dynamic minimal and maximum price. Another thing that I want to provide is Q&A testing paths. I think it is a bit problematic because people tend to provide new features, PRs, but they do not really know what kind of tricky behaviors and paths they should test, even manually. At first, I would like to prepare these paths as instructions or bullet lists. It might not sound that necessary at first, but let's imagine you are modifying car. There are so many tricky cases which you should check before applying a pull request. I want to describe them and make our lives easier. It will be. I want it to be public, so you will also be able to benefit from that in your own commercial project basing on Vue Storefront 1. In the future, probably I will try to write some kind of end-to-end tests basing on those paths. I'm not sure if everyone will be possible, but probably major one will be. In terms of second quarter, as I mentioned earlier, I want second quarter will be more focused on end-to-end tests. I want to look more at the Vue Storefront capybara. I would like to update it to the newest version of Storefront UI, and obviously provide new bug fixes and stuff like that. In terms of our documentation, I would like to apply their Algolia search. I mean the documentation on Vue Storefront 1. I also would like to finally release 1.13, which is minor patch of the Vue Storefront 1. There will be many useful stuff in this patch, but I think the coolest one is exactly refactor of the multi-store created by Tomasz Kostuch. He did a great job by refactoring the whole multi-store logic. He almost didn't need to make any breaking checks. There is only one small thing, which is great. He described it he described the upgrade nodes for developers who are going from the 1.12. And in this multi-store refactor, obviously we have simpler code, and the benefit we have is finally we will be able to set up multi-store on multi-domains with just one instance of Vue Storefront 1. I know that community asked about it many times. There was some tricky methods to achieve that, but now it will be so simple. Obviously, there will be a lot of more new features in 1.13 and some updates in 1.12.3. But I think these were the most interesting one. I think I also would like to mention that in 1.13 we are aiming to replace Vue Storefront API with Storefront API. We would like to focus more. We would like to switch to this solution. It is more scalable and better and written in better way. So I would like to inform you that it is worth to look at this even today, because in half year it will be recommended way of using this middleware instead of Vue Storefront API. I think from my side that's all about changes in Vue Storefront 1 for this month. Thanks.
Hi again. Whoa, great speech, Philip and Philip. It will be a challenge to beat it. Okay, so now about the Shopware PWA. Since the project become the part of the Vue Storefront ecosystem, I need to tell you something about this. First, we just go through the project compatibility and other stuff. in the next slides. So about the project itself, we can see that the project started over the 1 year ago. It's Shopware, native Shopware 6 client built upon the Next.js. We are also using the Storefront UI as a UI kit on our front end, and it's a part of the Vue Storefront ecosystem as well. And yeah, another thing we can be proud of is the 100% of the test coverage, and of course we've been doing it together with the Shopware 60 team, and I need to use the opportunity to greet the Dominic Klein, who is taking care of the technical stuff from the Shopware 6 perspective, and he just keeps the project on the right track. And we've got here the resources. I recommend you to learn more about the project, starting from the docs. Of course, the great source of knowledge about the project is hidden here in the official GitHub repository. And of course, the last thing is the official Slack channel. You can just jump in and ask whatever you want. Okay, so a few words about the compatibility. Because many people ask for this, we recommend you to use the latest stable, which is now the 0.61, and of course the Canary version always tries to catch up the changes that coming from the Shopware 16 team. They are really fast, and consequently it's really hard to catch up them. But yeah, we believe that in the first quarter of this year we will have covered the 6.4 version, and I can tell you a spoiler, that version will include the product page completely built on the CMS, which is called Shopping Experiences. So it's the really cool stuff and distinguishing feature. Okay, so what's new regarding the CLI? To improve the developer experience, we provide many of the commands available when you are working on the project. For instance, the comments responsible for team inheritance stuff. You can create your own team, develop it, and build in the end of development. Of course, we are heading to the situation when we've got the one-and-one logic covered from the Shopware settings. This is why we introduced the domains command, and it's run during the initialization of the project. It's responsible for the languages, currencies, and other stuff. You don't need to taking care of it. It's all automatically done. So yeah, and the few words about the team inheritance. It's done finally. You can play on the published code sandbox. You can find the link on the main page of the documentation. You can just use default theme, change the things you want to, and the output will be your project using the default theme, and the parts you want to overwrite will be also included in the final project. So encourage you to try it on the code sandbox. And this is what the creating and developing the custom theme looks like. You can just utilize the create theme CLI command, choose the theme you want to extend, and develop stuff you want to. You can just change the styling, write your own components, and so on. Yeah, and don't forget to point the theme you want to use in your config. That was in short how to work on the default theme and in theme inheritance. And another thing worth mentioning is the documentation. We added the cookbook that contains the most frequently scenarios or the cases. We are gathering the cases from the issues and from the Slack channel, and yeah, of course we are extending the list. We are trying to extend the list in every occasion. So this is just a starting point to make something really great. Yeah. Okay, so the last thing I want to talk about is the roadmap. We can see the roadmap on the Miro. I'm not sure if it's visible for you. Yeah, okay. So more or less it looks like this. If we group all the stickers on the board, we can tell about the UI. We just need to improve the UI, for instance, by upgrading the official Storefront UI library. We need to improve, of course, the extensibility. And yeah, being a part of the Vue Storefront ecosystem gives us a great chance to use the things made up by the Vue Storefront team, and they really did great stuff about the extensibility, which was a little bit mentioned by the Philip previously. And the third thing worth mentioning is the plugin ecosystem. We need to do, and we are just doing the cases of usage, the plugins from the Shopware for the Shopware 6. And this is what we are just focused on. Yeah, and I think more or less I went through all the topics I need to cover. So thank you.
Okay, so thank you, Maciek. Thank you, Filip. I think this is the right time to have a Q&A session. So if you have any questions, please drop them in the chat. I think we already have some anyway. So we will maybe start from the very beginning here. Let's see what we have. Okay, I see the first question. So, will you establish a similar business model to Magento open source versus Magento enterprise? I'm not sure exactly what you mean, but like the business models are obviously different for the open source version and the enterprise version. So, okay, I get it. So you're thinking about different versions of Magento, not about different versions of Magento for of Magento Vue Storefront integration. In that case, I think Philip can take this question, but we don't have plans on doing this. We will treat both versions of Magento the same way.
No, we are not. We are not going to develop a dedicated version for Magento Enterprise. However, I'm pretty sure that Nick Taylor meant to ask if our paid version of Vue Storefront Next will be similar to Magento Enterprise. I think he meant that, and I think you are a better person to answer that, Philip.
Yeah, I mean, I already answered. And we have another question, by the way. So the question is, we don't plan to have this differentiation. Now the question is, okay, so this is a two-part question. So yes, I was answering on our Slack that basically right now, if you have Magento, you should stick to current version of Vue Storefront. If you don't have Magento, then Next is for you. But I haven't said like you're stuck with Vue Storefront actually. And the question here is like, could you give context on the matter of Magento regarding Vue Storefront Next? So if there will be Vue Storefront Next integration for Magento, yes, there will be Vue Storefront Next integration for Magento. Does it mean that we won't support current integration? No, and like the reality is that it will take a lot of time until Vue Storefront Next integration for Magento will be as feature-rich and as mature and as proven in the production environment as the current one for Vue Storefront 1. Also, for Vue Storefront Next integration with Magento, we are still planning probably to use Storefront API. So there will be a way to migrate at some point, maybe not exactly the front end, but at least the backend. This is not a commitment. We are still thinking how to make this right, but we are thinking about the way, at least for our users to be able to migrate a part of the infrastructure to the Next if they want. But being completely honest, like if we were talking about the backend platform, it would make sense to me to migrate from one to another. But if we are talking about the front-end platform, if you have already built your front-end on the Vue Storefront 1, and Vue Storefront 1 will still be updated and maintained, then I really don't see a reason to, to abandon your whole front end and build exactly the same front end on Vue Storefront Next on Next. And the third part of the same question. So the Magento, the Vue Storefront 1 customers, yes, they fear that they will be amended. I think we're telling this like mantra on every meeting, on Slack, on Twitter, everywhere. We will not drop support for Vue Storefront 1. We even grown the team. So right now, we extended the team actually last week. So with a brother of Filip Jędrasik, Łukasz Jędrasik. So now we have two Jędrasik brothers in the team. And we really don't have plans on dropping the support for this. Like right now, there is more than 2,500 Vue Storefront shops. All of them are on Vue Storefront 1. And this is our community right now. Vue Storefront Next is something for the future, is something for other platforms right now that we are building, that we're growing, but still our core focus is Vue Storefront 1. And we will see in the next version how many efforts Filip have put it to make it performing better, to make it simpler, and also to expand the documentation. So really, like, we don't have plans on dropping support for Vue Storefront 1 as long as it will be used. Will Shopware PWA be ready for production in 2021, Maciej?
Yeah, for sure. In many cases, it's already it can be already used for the production, and it's already done. One or two, maybe more shops are already run based on the Shopware PWA. So yes, we're just polishing now and making some enhancements to make the product even better now. And of course, we are fixing the most annoying issues right now.
Mm-hmm. Thanks, Maciek. Then there we have another question. Is there any guidance, docs on implementing support in Vue Storefront Next for other backends? So yes, there is integration guide on our documentation. So if you will look, I think it is toggled, it is collapsed. You have to collapse this part of the navigation in the documentation, and there is integration guide, and there's e-commerce integration guide, and we basically have a full boilerplate, which is kind of like a working integration, but with everything hard-coded, so it's not that hard to integrate things. But be aware of what I have said at the beginning, that we are still planning breaking changes for the integrators. So if you don't mind, that there's not that much of them, but still, it is an effort. So if you don't mind being an early adopter of this and still like upgrading your integration, then go on. If not, then we suggest waiting at least for the next version, which will happen like at the first half of February. Okay, will we have any other questions? Maybe you want to ask something about the other platform support for Vue Storefront Next, or maybe you want me to tell a joke. You don't want me to tell a joke.
Tell one.
They are horrible. Okay, so we will be here, I think, for 5 more minutes. In terms, you will have a... Oh, okay. You already have any questions. So, will Vue Storefront 1 move to Vue.js 3 in the future? And will there be a migration guide for Vue Storefront 1 to Vue Storefront Next when support for Magento comes in? So I think I can answer the second part of the question. The first one is probably for Philip. So as I said, we are thinking right now how to make this migration possible, but don't expect like this being an update. This is the Vue Storefront Next is a completely different platform. We are aware that are some users that could feel disappointed if they won't be away, at least like a guide on how to do this. But as I said, like I wouldn't recommend this if you already have a well-performing web shop, because this migration will not give you that much of an improvement. Like the main, of course, like the main improvements of Vue Storefront Next is we are improving time to market. We are improving the boilerplates. We're giving better tools to build your shops. But if you have already built your shop and it is performing well, I think that would be, just doing this just for the sake of technocracy, and this is not bringing any business value.
Okay, in terms of first part of this question about using Vue.js 3 in Vue Storefront 1, for now there are no plans for implementing this, because as I said, we are working on bringing the best possible quality. This part is something I would move to the end of the queue of providing better quality. I think it might be really demanding. We want to omit breaking changes as much as possible, and I'm a bit worried. This move to the Vue.js 3 would require from us really many breaking changes. Definitely, it requires an analyze. It is not like that I say no, it won't be like that, but definitely not in the near future.
Yeah, this is something that we'll probably have to consult with you as a community, if this is something that you're expecting, and what are your arguments to do this. But be aware that this is a huge migration, and also the platform itself could be less stable because of that for quite some time. And we are really working on making Vue Storefront as stable as possible from at least like 1.8. So there's always a question, if this is worth it. Like if there are so many differences between Vue.js 2 and Vue.js 3 that is worth updating. I think there's not that many differences, except composition API, which actually should land in Vue.js 2 in the next release. So the mystery N release that is planned for Q2 of Vue.js, and they are planning to have a bridge to all the Vue 3 features if this is possible. And this is obviously their way of having this compatibility between two ecosystems, because they could end up with a fragmented ecosystem. So I think this is a tough question. As Philippe said, like it's definitely not at the beginning of our queue. Once the Vue 3 will be more stable, because right now it's not even suitable for Vue Storefront Next, probably we'll get back to the topic and ask you.
I think that's another one for me.
Mm-hmm.
So about Magento 1, I think we will we will support it, but only partially. In terms of, for example, Magento 2, Maciej is maintaining Magento 2 VS Bridge indexer, but in terms of bridges related to Magento 1, we left it on the Devantes organization, and we won't focus on this that much. To be honest, Magento 1 is really lower quality code in compared to Magento 2. We do not want to struggle that much with that. We will live with supporting what we have in terms of JavaScript code. So you could depend on us in terms of Vue Storefront API integration, part of integration, and Vue Storefront PWA. But in terms of writing PHP code related to Magento 1, we won't make this. To be honest, I recommend more to focus on Magento 2 if you want to get the best feeling from our side.
Mm-hmm. And another question. So what's about Vue Storefront Next with Shopify? Okay, so I know you could feel a little bit tricked because we announced this quite some time ago, and then actually nothing happened on this repo for a very long time, and it could seem like it was abandoned. And the reality is that, the Aurata Labs, who is in charge of this, for quite some time they were very busy with the project, actually also validating this integration. But right now, there is a person full-time dedicated to this integration. He's actually building it almost from scratch. And we already published a roadmap for this on the Shopify chat. And we have every week we have updates on that. And the ETA for this is actually like probably end of February to have the MVP of that, at least according to the roadmap. Also, there will be event organized by Aurata Labs. I don't want to spoil this, but probably this event is a good occasion to, publish such thing. So watch their social media and our social media closely. And this is right now something that we're actively working on. So yeah, I hope that answers your question. We have Jos, who is co-organizing Vue.js Amsterdam, who is congratulating us. Thanks, and see you soon. By the way, there will be 2 talks about Vue Storefront on Vue.js Amsterdam. I mean, not exactly about Vue Storefront, but talking about Vue Storefront and like the JS World, the conference that they're organizing. It's crazy because it is 24 hours of talks. So, if you're suffering from insomnia, it's probably a good way to spend time. Okay, is there an update on Storefront API release 1.0? GitHub README stated Q4 20. Philip?
Yeah, we pushed it. We pushed it away because there were other priorities and not enough resources to focus on Storefront API. But as I said, we want to make it recommended solution instead of Vue Storefront API in like a half year. So we will definitely look more at it soon. So yeah, we will try to realize plan for Q4 of 2020 in Q1 or Q2 and Q2 of 2021.
Yeah, actually, there was not enough resources, but now we have 1.5 million, so I think we'll manage this. Okay, this is interesting because we already had discussions about this on Vue Storefront Slack. So Elastic recently changed the license. and we'll take basic in Vue Storefront 1. What do we think about this? So Philip can share what he thinks about this.
Yeah, so Elastic changed a license to SSPL because of behavior of AWS and their Elastic service, because they just took Elastic code, modified it, and bit and sell. And they sold code. They modified only a part. Elastic in the article told about many examples, many bad behaviors from their side. This is how Elastic want to prevent behaviors like that. It is mostly related to exactly Amazon behavior, and they say it shouldn't hit us for real. However, SSPL license is a bit ambiguous, and to be honest, the Vue Storefront 1 will stay maximum with the 7.10 version of Elasticsearch. If you want to use the bigger, 7.11 or bigger, you can do it, but we won't take responsibility for that. License is ambiguous, and you should analyze it for your own purposes and infrastructure and how it looks like. Probably there won't be problems. However, we want to provide safe, 100% sure safe infrastructure for our users. That's why we will stay at 7.10 maximum. What's more, also as just for curious ones, Amazon decided to just make a fork of Elasticsearch and stay with that, and somehow starting developing their own solution instead of contributing to the open source one. That's all for this question.
Okay, so we don't have any more questions right now. So guys, if you have any more, we're always on Slack, so just feel free to post them here. Also, we'll have the same meeting next month. The exact date will be probably announced like a week before or something like this. Well, and thank you very much. Let us know also if you like this format. Maybe you have some feedback. Maybe you want us to be more specific. Maybe you want us to be less specific. Maybe you want us to be more entertaining and have a jokes part. Any feedback that you think is valuable and will help us to make a better event next time, just let us know. We're trying to have a very loose form, like just letting what we are working on and chatting, if that's possible. And we have a few more questions in the meantime.
Okay, I see they are related to Vue Storefront 1. Okay, I couldn't find a go-to way to get Docker set up with VSF and VSF API. Is there an updated article? Article is not updated. However, you should be able to set up this without any troubles. For example, I often use Docker Compose for Vue Storefront API, but to bring the whole infrastructure. Mostly Elasticsearch, which could be problematic for me to have so many instances on my device without virtualization. In terms of using Docker Compose for Vue Storefront API, it is simple, just like using command from docs. Docker Compose using 2 entry files. So it is something like Docker Compose -f Docker Compose.node.js.aml, and the second file is Docker Compose.iml. I just using Docker Compose app with those 2 files. With that, I can make sure they are in the same network, so So Node.js API can easily access Elasticsearch. Mostly in terms of if I set up API like that, I prefer to set up PWA with just Yarn without Docker, because on different operating system there might be different problems. For example, I'm working every day on Ubuntu 20.04, and there are no problems with network mode host, and my Docker Compose images can easily access each other. However, in Mac OS and Windows, there might be a problems related to that, and you have to have proper port mapping, so they will be able to see each other, and it might be a bit more advanced. So as I said, to achieve the target the easiest way, set up with one command Vue Storefront API, both Docker Composes, and I recommend to set up PWA just with Yarn. If you still want to use Docker Compose approach with those two applications, just send me DM on the Slack, and I will try to support you, because we are on live, and I won't tell you comments from my head, right?
Why?
It would be weird, at least a bit.
So we have another question: is there support for WSL2? So I dropped a link recently to an article that is talking about this on our chat. Probably if you Google like using Vue Storefront with WSL2, you will find this article. I haven't tested that myself, but if the guy made it work, I think there is a support. Another question: Vue Storefront 1 integrated in Magento 1. Is the transition from Elastic 5 to 7 expected? Philip.
So the recommended way of bringing data from Magento to Elasticsearch is Magento 1 or 2 VS Bridge Indexer. As I said, we are only developing Magento 2 VS Bridge Indexer from our side, and Magento 1 VS Bridge Indexer won't be developed, and it needs to be developed to have support for Elasticsearch 7, because in Elasticsearch 6 there were breaking changes related to how data is being saved. There are no mappings anymore, and a few things are different. So it would require effort in modifying Magento 1 VS Bridge Indexer and writing so much PHP code. We won't take care of that. As I said, we won't write additional PHP stuff for Magento 1.
Mm-hmm. There's another thing. I don't think that's a question, but it's raising the topic that I think I want to elaborate a little bit on. So actually, right now with these forms, one of the things that we are focusing very heavily is actually knowledge sharing. So we want to publish videos, we want to publish articles, we want to have the best possible documentation. And this is what we are heavily focusing on right now, except millions of other things, of course, but we are really aware of the value of a good sources of knowledge around the platform, and we really want to spend a lot on having this. And there's another question: will Vue Storefront Next be more packaged based, so it's easier to extend and also simpler to update our local code base? Storefront 1 can be quite difficult to merge changes in. Yes, everything in Vue Storefront Next is based on NPM packages, and it should be extremely straightforward to update. So basically, the UI layer is not upgradable. This is something that you have to upgrade, but everything underneath is made as package and was thought as a package from the very beginning. So all the extendability system, everything is in pair with that. Is it possible to avoid the use Vue Storefront Next with the Storefront UI package? Yes. By the way, hey Roberto, I think he's with us from the version 0 point something. He's a part of our community. So is it possible to avoid the use of Vue Storefront Next with the Storefront UI package? Do you mean that is it possible to use Storefront UI standalone? If so, yes, this is a totally standalone library that we're just using. This is still library that we are making, so we're making sure that it works best with Vue Storefront, but you are free to use Storefront UI without Vue Storefront, and it's not a problem at all. There's no connection made in the library itself. Will Vue Storefront Next have support for TypeScript? It is built in TypeScript from the very beginning. So Vue Storefront Next has full TypeScript support. And I think that's all. And also, it's the right time to finish. So thank you very much, everyone, and see you next month. Drop us a message if you have any suggestions how we could improve these meetings. Thanks.
Thank you, everyone.
See you next time.
See you.